So for today, we are starting with a very controversial topic, and what I've written lots about, and many people have discussed, is what happened to Hitler at the end of World War II. There are so many conspiracies out there that is just crazy, and the problem that I have as a publisher of history on the internet is that there are so many lies out there, and people just take for granted every piece of information they find because they think it's a reliable source if it's published on the internet, but they don't imagine that anyone can put anything on the internet without being verified by anyone. So we will go through a few of these conspiracies, ones that are a bit more down on earth and not crazy like him going to the moon or anything like that. The first one that I wanted to discuss, and I've written about many, many times now, is him escaping to South America, and more specifically Argentina. However, there have been some rumors that he was in Colombia as well, which we'll get to that later. Many people wonder how can he end up there? But they don't know that the Germans were really good I'm not going to say allies, because they never partnered in war, at least in World War II, with the Spanish. They helped them with supplies, they helped them with information, especially information about the naval recruitments for the British Empire, British Naval Force, my bad, at the time. The other part is that they didn't really want to interfere into World War II because they already had enough trouble with the Spanish Civil War between 1936 and 1939, if I am right. I think I am. Do you correct me if I'm not, but I think I am.
I'm just setting up everything. Could continue what you were talking about. Yeah.
You look a bit lost.
No, I'm just putting the tags on because on Twitch
right.
they weren't updating.
So yeah, and of course you might think, how the hell does a person escape when Berlin is literally surrounded by allies? We have Russians coming from the east.
We have a new follower. Thank you, SMG boy. I think that's Sam. Yeah, thank you. Continue.
My bad. You're the one he's the one who's seeing all the notifications going on. So do stop me if you get any more followers or anything. Thank you for following, by the way.
Silent Control said in chat that there were tons of tunnels under Berlin and highways always available for warplanes. So I think you should touch on that because that's part of one of the theories.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know about the highways and all the tunnels that have been built. I'm not saying they haven't, but it's been said that once the Allies were like, I don't know, I think it was 10 kilometers away from Berlin, they started to actually dig a wall. Oh, okay. The fall line. Okay, that's what you're talking about. Right. Well, about that, I don't know how much it was possible to really escape on that route on the highways. A tunnel may be more possible because, like I said, I think the Allies, the Russians, were 10 kilometers or 10 miles away from Berlin, and there were rumors of starting to dig a tunnel towards the north so that they can actually escape. But I don't think that you can actually dig a tunnel in such a short period of time.
Well, I know we spoke about this privately, but you've told me about a theory that the Nazis actually dug a tunnel all the way to Finland because Finland was part of the Axis during the later stages of the war, and that obviously seems like a crazy idea, but I think we should talk about it.
No, it is. It's a conspiracy. Like, again, I just want to mention we're not supporting, neither are we really denying these conspiracies. At least, the ones that are more down to earth. With this one, I'm a bit skeptical because digging so much. I mean, just imagine the manpower that is required, which, I mean, let's not say they didn't have it. They did have it, but I think rather than having so many people trying to dig a tunnel, they would actually give them guns and send them on the battlefields rather than, trying to, especially with their mindsets at the end of the world with all the denial that was going on. If the soldiers were to actually want to dig a tunnel, they would just dig a tunnel for themselves and no one else and just collapse what's behind them and just keep digging. But I think that one is a bit more, just too much. Just too much. I digging, like, how many kilometers is Finland from Berlin?
I mean, from the UK to Berlin, it's about 1,000 and a bit. So I'd say it's about the same distance. 1,000 kilometers worth of tunnels. If you think about it, like the people who are famous for digging tunnels, like the El Chapo crew, who dug tunnels under the Mexican border to do that kind of thing. They had such a monetary incentive to do it, and they still didn't manage to dig thousands of kilometers worth of tunnels. Even with all the might of the Third Reich behind them, I don't think Hitler could have ordered such a long tunnel, especially under sea, under so many obstacles between Germany and Finland at the time. Let's see what the people are saying in chat. There were tons of tunnels under Berlin. Yes, silent, of course. Highways are available, of course. Already said that. Russians started to drink vodka as soon as they realized they are victorious. Yeah, it gave us sufficient time to run away. I mean, on the day of the defeat of Berlin, Moscow actually ran out of vodka. This is quite a funny story.
Yeah. You wrote about that, didn't you?
Yeah. Basically, after they announced that obviously Germany surrendered and Russia won the war, the people of Moscow all went out on the street, really happy, raided every alcohol shop nearby. Alcohol was selling at train stations like hot bread. It was a scene to behold, I'm guessing. I wish I could have been there. But it really shows the Russian spirit about the war, even though they were celebrating even as they were making their way into Berlin and before the surrender. So that might have given Hitler enough time to dig something up, but I'm really not sure. The tunnel should arrive to Holland was still under their reign.
I guess if we were to talk about Holland, they would be a bit more realistic. But even so, I don't see it, because I don't see Hitler wasting the manpower, which was really needed, especially when Berlin was surrounded, to actually use it to dig a tunnel. I think he would just send every man on the battlefield. At least that's my perspective.
I mean, he was sending children at some point near like the end of the defense. Yeah. So I think because Hitler was such a fanatic about his ideology, I don't know if he would have ended up sending his limited resources to save himself rather than save his country. In that situation.
we can see in the last, I think it was 6 days, where they fought for Berlin, right in the center. I think we can see there that they had. I mean, most of the German soldiers were the SS officers that were left, because the other people that were fighting were pretty much German civilians. They weren't soldiers anymore, or German workers that were over there. There weren't much soldiers left. It was just SS officers. And I do emphasize this in the articles that I write, that I make a difference from the Wehrmacht soldiers and the SS officers, because they're two different types of people. And that's why I say this. I mean, you wouldn't have the SS officers fighting the same as the Wehrmacht soldiers, because the SS officers, obviously, they're more well trained. They some of them maybe have been on the battlefield, but most of them at that time they haven't. So, but they did do whatever they could. So getting back to the topic, I would say with this conspiracy of digging the tunnel, it's not what Hitler would have done, especially with his mindset, but more specifically is that some people, right, this is a different conspiracy, some people think that Hitler died of Parkinson's disease about a month before before taking over Berlin. And not many people knew. It were only the heads that actually knew, because obviously if this announcement came out right before the end of the war, that would devastate the troops and they would probably surrender then and there. But maybe that was his last wish. Even though so, I wouldn't say that's true, because if that were to be true, people would have surrendered. Because it was just him that was cynical and knew that maybe through some miracle they can still win the war with just 1,000 troops, whilst being surrounded by the Russians, who had millions, and the allies from the West.
Silent Control makes a good point, chat, actually. He thought the last of the child soldiers could protect the city, however it didn't work out, so he could run away at the last time. Berlin airport resisted for a long time. That is true, but even if Hitler would have gotten on a plane, the air superiority the Allies had at the time, because the German Air Force was destroyed by the end of the war, I don't think he would have got that far away from Berlin until he would have been intercepted by one of the Allies, unless he maybe disguised his aircraft or used a captured aircraft from the Allies to try to blend in with a flight wing of other Allied planes that were patrolling. That might be a stretch, but it's not as much of a stretch as digging a tunnel all the way to Finland, I guess.
Uh, I would say that the conspiracy of him going to Spain and then from Spain going to Argentina or at least South America. There's people say that it wasn't Argentina, it was some other different country. Some people say it was Brazil. We'll just leave it to South America because having him keep on going to at least the north side of Europe, I would imagine that he was really hunted man. Even though if Holland was still at the time under the German regime, I don't know. That at least that's what I think.
Someone in chat has also said that he was using drugs consist of different materials. He seemed like Alzheimer's because of that. I'm not sure. I think his closest doctor actually diagnosed him with some type of disease. I don't remember. It might have been Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. I think it was 100% that he had Parkinson's, and he was given really weird things to treat it. He was injected with a mixture, a concoction of really weird chemicals that I'm sure we can find a list of them somewhere, but it includes some really ridiculous medicines that even for a doctor that is treating one of the most powerful people in the world, it's really weird to do that. Wasn't he high for most of the war? I don't think high. He was on drugs for most of the war, but I don't know if he was high for most of the war. He did. I don't remember what the story exactly behind it was, but he gave. I don't remember if it was methamphetamine or speed to.
I think it was heroin, actually.
Was it heroin? He gave some drugs, some kind of drugs to the soldiers.
Because heroin was pretty common as a medicine. I mean, a drug, class A drug that we consider it today. It was pretty common as medicine, especially in the German military. What I wanted to touch upon on that point is that I don't actually think, I'm not really good at medical stuff, but I don't actually think you can die from Parkinson's. I think it's a more of a degenerative disorder, I would say. But you can't actually die from it. Obviously, it will affect your health to the point where you will get other probably diseases or other health problems that might cause death. But the Parkinson's itself, the disease, I don't think it can actually kill you.
That's definitely something to look into. I'm not really sure myself. Obviously, we're more historians rather than medical professionals, but it causes you to be susceptible to other diseases, I do believe. Most
likely, like all the drugs.
Then, yeah, that would make sense then, because he was being prescribed a lot of things. I'm gonna see if well, actually, Andrei, if you can try to find a list of all the drugs that he was prescribed. Because this is a bit of an extension to did Hitler escape Berlin? Because if Hitler wasn't alive in Berlin in 1945, there is no point arguing if he escaped or not, because obviously if he was dead, he can't escape. But there were findings that have said he was using a chemical soup like meth. I'm sure Andrei can pull up a list of all the.
What I found over here, we have heroin, we have cocaine, we have methamphetamine. So apparently he was prescribed all of them, but not at the same time. He tried different ones, but it didn't work for him. He suffered from various diseases and health problems by the time he reached 1945, near his death. But I do believe that I don't think that he died from a health problem. I would say that he just killed himself. He committed suicide, like it's like most conspiracies and most theories say and assume. Another thing that I wanted to touch upon is that if we were to talk about him escaping to South America, which again, I think everyone heard about this, at least everyone who's done some research on Hitler heard about this type of conspiracy. They say that a lot, we have proof. I mean, it has been proven, and even CIA declassified some files, I think it was in 2016, where they have shown some picture, but it's not really a picture. It's some weird type of photography where apparently he was claimed to be alive in 1945, if I'm not mistaken, in Colombia at that time. So that's why they say that he might have also been seen in Colombia by a man named Philip Citroen. he was actually a CIA agent that was sent to actually see if Hitler was still alive. Well, it wasn't just Hitler. He went to actually see if how many people from the Third Reich, how many Nazis, more of a say, were still alive in South America. And I think many of you have heard that there have been cases reported where previous Nazis have been found living in South America, or at least records of them being alive previous to
I want
this.
if you're done with that point, I want to touch on something that Oscar said in chat. Thoughts on the body found in the Führer bunker, which the Russians claim that it was Hitler, but in fact were female body parts. And also, was there enough gasoline to burn all the bodies? In terms of the Soviet claim that in fact they did find Hitler's body parts, I'm not sure, because as Simon says, we're not sure if the body was indeed burnt or if it was disposed of in another way. From what I've read about the topic, or there was an article on history.com from 2018 which talks about somebody finding Hitler's dentures, and we know they were Hitler's dentures because DNA tests confirmed that it was actually his dentures, that they were found somewhere in Berlin, and that kind of confirms that he was in Berlin in 1945 and as such wouldn't have escaped. So this only leaves us with him leaving his dentures behind and escaping to Argentina or wherever he escaped, which is, unless he ripped half of his mouth off, I'm not sure he could have done that. Or his body was burnt in Berlin and this was part of the remains. In terms of enough gasoline being available to burn all of the bodies, I'm sure that would have been a concern to them, but I'm sure they would have made it happen. Obviously, this was such an important... For the people in the Führer bunker, they were Hitler's utmost supporters. They were people who really believed in his ideology. They would have done everything possible to try to give their leader the most dignified death and make sure that they didn't capture... the enemy couldn't capture his bodies, especially an enemy which he hated so much, like the Soviets. So as Oscar said, in my opinion, I don't think the Soviets did end up finding Hitler's body. And like you said, it was indeed just random body parts of people that they may or may not have just found around Berlin. And they just put the body parts in the Führer bunker, took a picture of it, and were like, oh, look, this is Hitler. And look, we captured him, to get a bit of extra prestige at the end of the war.
You were saying something that they found, because I spoke with you a few days before, and you said something that they found Hitler's teeth, I think.
Yeah, the dentures that were what was.
Right.
What was I talking about before?
Right.
So that kind of confirms that he couldn't have escaped. Or at least couldn't have escaped in the way we're thinking of escaping. He escaped through death. And
the original idea of him escaping, let's say, at least a few days before the end of war, at least in Europe, I think it's impossible, because we're looking at, you have millions of soldiers surrounding Berlin, not even talking about Germany. I mean, you couldn't escape the city. Let's say you made it out of the city, and then what? Honestly.
I think there was, I don't remember if it was a German general or something along those lines, did try to disguise himself as either a German prisoner of war or something along those lines, but he got caught.
Possible.
He did get caught really early into his escape plan, so I don't think that would have been viable either. Hitler had just a special dental treatment from the teeth. It could have been done to another similar guy. I mean, true. I'm not exactly sure on the details. I skimmed the article that I'm talking about, but even the DNA is always not 100% accurate. It could have been a double negative, or it could have been something that does pop up saying oh, this is Hitler's DNA, and at the end of the day, we can never really know, because the only way of knowing what happened to him would be to go back in time and witness for ourselves what happened in the bunker.
I'm just gonna one moment, because we have a comment on the Facebook stream saying the tunnel system was used or not. So, like I said, with all these conspiracies that we talked today, us historians, we're here to present the facts. We're not really here to agree or disagree. We're saying the possibilities from a historical point of view, but I think that the tunnels themselves, they're a bit far-fetched. So I would say, in my opinion, no. But there's no justification of it being real, being true or not.
We have a Oscar's actually posted the Wikipedia entry of this topic. So it says the myth that Hitler did not commit suicide but instead escaped with his wife was first presented to the public by Marshal Gregory Zhukov at the press conference on 9th of June 1945 on orders from the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. When asked at the Potsdam Conference in July 1945 how Hitler had died, Stalin said he was either living in Spain or in Argentina. So yeah, so as Silent also says that Stalin never accepted that Hitler was dead officially. So I think that
No. You know what I think that is? It's just having so much hatred and
yeah, I was gonna
having
say
so much hatred that you just do not want to believe until you see your own, or actually knowing Stalin until you kill him with your
Yeah.
own hand.
I think because after fighting for so long against him, after 4 hard years of where Stalin broke down so much, I have a picture. I don't remember where I found it exactly. It was a picture of like Stalin, like with like he had his head in his hands and looking down after he heard the declaration of war, and that kind of like embodies his whole attitude that he experienced throughout the war because he was at the beginning he completely disappeared after the declaration of war. He was so stressed that he just disappeared from the commanding post. And I don't remember if it was General Zhukov or another general had to take over until he came back. And he was like, oh, okay, let's do this. So the war impacted him so much that I think that he couldn't accept that after he worked so hard to beat him, it was finally over.
Yeah.
And as such,
Yeah.
he made that statement. He was like, "Oh yeah, he's not dead. We're still trying to fight him because he was still seeking to continue that fight within him."
Yeah. Well, it's just, I mean, if you were to look at how he treated not only his family, his soldiers, but everyone around him during the war, especially leaving his son on the battlefield like nothing. Like